Is everything happening in Boruto by chance, or are we witnessing a grand scheme of Amado? The mastermind theories have been going on for a while, but what got my attention lately is the portrayal of Akebi Sanzo in the manga. We are only left with 3 Shinju beings now, and Kawaki has promised to fulfill Amado's wish once he eliminates all his enemies. Plus, the design of the shell that is covering Akebi's body looks kinda similar to the pattern that we saw on the body of the hypothetical OTSUTSUKI god. Now, there is no way Amado may have met that entity, but what if it's actually a hint on the author's side where he's teasing something humongously big? So let's dive into not one but several theories for how Amado could be pulling the cards from behind for a greater picture, starting with the heptagram shaped Kama seal, which still hasn't appeared in the manga yet, even if it was a decoy, meaning a sort of initial idea which didn't make it to the final draft. There is still some lore behind it that I found, and considering the similar shape that Amado used under Delta's capsule, it seems like everything adds up perfectly, so let's dive into it. In many of the popular anime series, there have been a glimpse of a certain element which didn't fully pay off by itself, but with the further developments in the story, it became clear that what the writers had originally envisioned with the setup. For example, in Naruto, the Byakugan was renowned as the strongest dojutsu, but we never saw a Byakugan user take the whole spotlight of the show. Instead, the Sharingan and Rinnegan users took the show by storm, as many major characters were using these eyes. It wasn't until very later when the OTSUTSUKI were introduced with Byakugan when we finally got to know that what the setup was all about. However, the Byakugan users did not directly compete with the OTSUTSUKI, so it still didn't grant them a greater stature, which might have been the original plan. Similarly, in Dragon Ball, Gohan, the son of Goku, was believed to be the chosen one, someone who would carry the show forever after surpassing his father, and he almost did that in the Cell arc, but unfortunately he never got that level of aura again, and was almost always overshadowed by some other hero. The case with the heptagram seal in Boruto could be the same, and I will prove it to you in the next few minutes. The poster of this seal was shown on the Kara wall, which had other posters with different Kama patterns. So the only way for Kara to get their hands on a symbol like this was by the means of having a vessel who manifested this mark. But till now in the story, we haven't seen anything like that, so what's going on? When I dig deeper into the symbolism behind this shape, I found something really mind-blowing, so hear me out. This 7-pointed star is known as the heptagram. This shape seems to have a lot of significance in a number of cultures across the world. A common thing that I noticed in many cultures is the fact that on each point of the heptagram, there is a very unique shape, and all of them have their own significance. I feel like the authors may have taken inspiration from the symbolism of the 7-pointed star while coming up with this missing Kama. Take a look at this picture. The symbol on the 3rd point is way too similar to the one that was present under the capsules of Delta. The significance of this 3rd point in mythology turns out to be the power to bring love in all aspects. We know that Delta is the clone of Amado's daughter, whom he loved with all his heart. It was the affection for Akebi which made him came up with the staggering plan, and that's why this symbol that's beneath her capsule could be a straight reference to the power of love. Not to mention the same symbol was used by Hidan while performing the Jashin ritual. Now there we have our first theory. Akebi could be the vessel to another OTSUTSUKI, because the whole blueprint of Kama revival that Amado gave to us has a big loophole hidden inside. The part which explains how Akebi will be revived with the Kama seal makes perfect sense. But what's the cherry on top is that Amado could have mixed the DNA of any OTSUTSUKI in this seal, and instead of the power awakening being a gamble, just like how it was with the Kara subjects, the possibility for Akebi to awaken broken Shinjutsu is 100%, since she is being injected with the divine seal of the OTSUTSUKI, which should theoretically make her part of OTSUTSUKI as well. Now here is something that would hype up all the OG fans of the show. Since the Jashin symbol was a part of this mythological heptagram symbol, what if it's the powers of Jashin that Amado is trying to replicate by reviving Akebi? Now what I'm about to say is totally mind-blowing. We know Akebi's death had devastated Amado to the point that he crossed all the limits in order to put Kawaki in a position where he had to revive Akebi. The signature power of Jashin that Hidan showcased was immortality. So what if he's trying to make Akebi immortal by awakening the Shinjutsu of Jashin in her? Well, Momoshiki has already laid the possibility of OTSUTSUKI gods who were on the planet before. So Jashin being one of them and Amado using his powers to make Akebi immortal is a really huge possibility. Now this could go down in one of the following ways. Either Amado will revive Akebi without anything major happening after that, which is the least likely possibility, judging by how Akebi's setup is being built up as something that will not be ordinary. Or it could be that she will unlock the powers of Jashin, making her a threat that Kawaki will try to eliminate. And as foreshadowed recently, it might lead him into a huge conflict with Amado. Finally, the most horrifying possibility would be Jashin, the god of Hidan, resurrecting into Akebi, which would take us to an unexpected phase of the story, where a legendary evil entity would emerge from someone who had been in the plot from very long. Jashin or some other OTSUTSUKI god manipulating Amado would be similar to Black Zetsu driving the story through multiple characters for the sake of reviving his mother Kaguya. The scientist being controlled by another entity is also possible because Momoshiki has revealed there were beings in the past who changed the memories of humanity with omnipotence. So what if he wasn't referring to the whole mankind, but actually some specific targets who were used by these OTSUTSUKI gods for some greater purpose? If Amado turns out to be one of them after Akebi loses herself once she is revived, I hope you remember this theory if a plot twist like that shows up. One of the most notable tropes in shonen anime is the revelation of a character's family member turning out to be the true arch-nemesis of the story. Even in Naruto, we saw the close and distant relatives of main characters turning out to be legendary foes or allies, which overall made the story more interesting. Now the problem with Boruto was that we know all the characters from previous generations, so providing a shock reveal just like how it was done in Naruto was not that easy, but at the same time, it wasn't impossible either. With that being said, since the prime focus of the story is on Kawaki based on how he has been shown to become the ultimate big bad in future, here is a theory that perfectly fits in this scenario. What if the characters who are too dependent on Kawaki are actually his close blood relatives? I'm talking about Amado and Akebi turning out to be his grandfather and mother, and the hints to back this are pretty reasonable. First off, we have the face resemblance. Amado looks like the older version of Kawaki, and if we make Akebi or Delta have a boycott, she too looks very similar to him. Then we have Kawaki and Delta acting as a team for most part of Two Blue Vortex. This may be yet another hint indicating the human counterpart of Delta sharing a deeper bond with him. Just look at this panel of Delta caretaking for Kawaki after he was hit by Jura. I may be reaching, but this could be a foreshadowing for her motherly love for Kawaki. Then we have Akebi's DNA, which lies within the artificial karma. Amado seems to have been in a specific need of Kawaki for the sake of reviving Akebi. And if I'm not mistaken, maybe it has something to do with their human genetics instead of the OTSUTSUKI seal itself. Similar to how we have blood types in real life, and you can only donate your blood to someone with a similar variant, or it just wouldn't work. Kawaki becoming an OTSUTSUKI and the possibility of Akebi turning an OTSUTSUKI too yet again highlights their mysterious relationship. So could it be that Amado deliberately chose his grandson for the Ishiki ritual after gathering all the knowledge about the karma, just so he could revive his daughter, who's surprisingly the mother of Kawaki? Well, it also makes sense in terms of the timeline, so let's have a quick look at it. Kawaki is 14 years old in the first part of the story, and Amado revealed that he had met Jigen 12 years ago when his daughter died. Aida confirmed Akebi was 24 at the age of death, so we can assume that Kawaki was just 2 years old when he lost his mother. Then we have another hint coming from his father Kokasu, who was revealed to be a legendary shinobi in the anime. But on screen he was introduced as someone who was really mean to his own child. He gave Kawaki some lifelong trauma which kept coming back to him through other people as well, and it wasn't until he found Naruto that he completely moved on from the turmoil. But just think about the fact that Kokasu had went from a great shinobi to a goofy drunkard. So what exactly went wrong becomes the question here. If I had to put in the Akebi angle into this, maybe Kokasu became a drunkard after losing his wife to some disease. We know a person can have deep emotional impact on another person, especially if it's a loved one. Like Obito from the original series turned around his whole persona after losing Rin. So Kokasu also leaving the way of shinobi to become an alcoholic father who didn't even refuse to sell his offspring for some money. Doesn't seem like something that someone who has lost their love of life would do. For Kokasu, Kawaki could have either become a symbol that reminds him of Akebi or a burden that he had to carry for the rest of his life. And unfortunately for Kawaki, the second possibility came true, which made his life pretty dark. But this development will not go waste, since we are about to witness the master plan of Amado, which could finally bring the Sanzu family together. Now as for my final theory on how Amado may be the mastermind of Boruto, let's look at all the moves that he may have made under the sleeve which contribute to his ultimate goal. Starting off with the plot element which brought an expression of shock to the scientist, but in actuality, it may be something that he had himself planned just to reach his goals swiftly. I'm talking about Aida's obsession with Kawaki, a plot angle which for some reasons doesn't get that much attention. Don't you find it weird that Aida magically fall in love with the person who was the key in Amado's master plan? The whole omnipotence incident is what accelerated the revival of Akebi, so could it be that he knew something? That's why he made sure Aida would fall in love with Kawaki, which ultimately made her manifest something which turned around in his favor. Well, this gets more weird when you realize how Aida and Daemon would have never came to Konoha if Amado hadn't invited them. The whole cohabitation thing made it a lot easier for Aida to interact with Kawaki in a way that his life would get exchanged with Boruto. And if you think he only implanted Aida with Kawaki's desire and then brought her to Konoha when given the chance, what if I told you it was actually Amado who manipulated code into unlocking the cyborg siblings? I think it wasn't a spirit, but actually a hologram of Ishiki that Amado used to push code into finding new allies. This means he not only pre-planned Aida to love Kawaki, but also made sure that code would activate her at the secret base. Well, if you think that's pure genius, then look at the scene where he's about to die by the hands of code, but he somehow manages to make Aida and Daemon switch sides. Well, it's almost as if he knew everything about their personalities and what exactly he would have to offer in order to get what he wanted. But this doesn't stop here. Code did not die in this fight. Instead, he escaped and created an army of Clawgrimes, the Ten-Tails beings who were morphed with his Shinjutsu. If it wasn't for Code creating these creatures, then the Shinju would have never been born either, meaning Kawaki wouldn't have helplessly went to Amado for help, which is when the scientist put forward his deal of reviving Akebi. So it's definitely possible that Amado may have used psychological games or secret implantations on all his cyborgs just to make it more efficient for him to reach the resurrection of his daughter. But what if there is more to his revival method which hasn't been disclosed yet? Well, this is what I would like to call the transmigration of destiny. By infusing Akebi's DNA in Kawaki's karma, which in itself is an OTSUTSUKI tech, Amado may be trying to rewrite the destiny of Akebi so that she wouldn't die like last time after getting revived. Now there are two ways for something like this to go down. First, it could be the biological route, like whatever disease had infected Akebi which led to her death would most likely not affect her after she becomes an OTSUTSUKI. In other words, her OTSUTSUKI physiology would save her from human diseases, even the hazardous ones. The second way to look at it goes back to the statement of Kawaki from chapter 78, where he said that the shinobi are too weak to protect themselves. The shinobi or humans in general are prone to dangers such as the OTSUTSUKI clan or anyone having otherworldly powers that they cannot compete against. So a normal human being in most cases would have a shorter lifespan as he wouldn't be able to protect himself in times of a calamity. In that case, becoming an OTSUTSUKI would naturally increase the person's chances of survival. Not to mention it would also enhance their lifespan to an enormous degree. So one of the reasons Amado wants Akebi to become an OTSUTSUKI could have something to do with changing her destiny so that her life isn't cut short, just like last time. If you wish to witness some more interesting theories, check out these videos right now, and I will see you next time.